everybody. I'm International Master Sophika Goramishvili.
Anishgiri.
Elizabeth Pitts.
Levon Aronian.
Frank Hauska.
Maxime Vachelagrave.
To improve as a chess player, you need to get used to recognizing patterns.
This was one of those lessons you get for life.
Well, hello there. Hope the sound works, the video works and everything. This is my debut on the Kasparovchess channel, and as usual, all the tech issues that may or may not happen during today's stream are entirely my fault. I'm not generally very good with technology, although I've improved, I think, over the past year. I was forced to improve. And today we will, just as soon as I finish up some things I could have finished up while the ads were playing, obviously, we'll start talking about chess. I do have the chat open, as you may have noticed, because I've been typing in it. So questions are always welcome. The first half of the show today will be me talking about some of the games of the ongoing Superbet Cup in Bucharest. I'll show you some snippets of the action there. We don't really have time for like a proper roundup of all five rounds, but I will talk about a few games. We'll see how fast it goes. I have some games lined up. Might be 3, might be 4, depending on how things go. And after that, I will play. Kasparovchess members for about an hour, a kind of a banter blitz show. No Rajabov games, please. Yeah, there's not going to be any Rajabov games featured in the stream. He might, you know, we all know how strong of a chess player he is. He might actually, you know, decide that he has an idea somewhere in the second half of the tournament, and then, you know, he can, on his day, he can obviously beat anybody in the world. But so far, we haven't seen that Timur yet in this tournament. But that's the second half of the hour of the show. The first hour will I'm getting slightly confused. That's the first half hour, and the second half will be me playing chess on Kasparovchess. So let's start actually discussing the tournament going on in Romania. A very welcome sight, of course. Over the board chess returning, and a fantastic lineup, very strong players. And despite the tournament being somewhat quiet so far, there's definitely been a number of games which I could definitely talk about probably any single one of them for the full hour, but that's probably not a very productive use of our time. So let's start with honestly the only really lively game on round one. Round one, I assume most of you have been following the goings on in Bucharest. And round one did end with all 5 games being drawn, and and not all of them were particularly exciting. And Anish himself tweeted that he kind of felt like it was pretty much on him to provide excitement, lively chess, and just general things to watch in round one. And as you can see, I'm not starting from the first move here, because this I wanted to show you a few critical points in the mid game here. This is a game between, as you can see on your screen, the local player Bogdan Daniel Deac. I'm really hoping I'm not mispronouncing his name. I probably should have inquired. I played him once in Gibraltar when he was even younger than he is now. Obviously, he's not very young, very old now, but he was I think maybe 15 at the time. And I did not Deac. Yeah, okay, Deac is. I had a feeling I was doing the wrong thing there, and he kind of shocked me by absolutely going for the throat from move 1 against me, because perhaps mistakenly, I'm much more used to people, young players in particular, showing me like a modicum of respect when we play for the first time. Definitely no respect was being shown in that game. I survived barely. I think I was like dead lost out of the opening there, and then I managed to find some chances, and game ended being a draw. So this is clearly the anti-Moscow variation of the Slav. I think I say clearly, this is maybe slightly slightly privileged of me, but this structure with the king on c8, I think, is sort of reasonably recognizable as as something that happens in the Moscow anti-Moscow. And black is an exchange down. White at some point put the knight on d6. There was a pawn on e5, and white gave a check on the d6 square, and black gave up an exchange for that knight. But black has obviously a lot of pawns here for the exchange. And this is the first talking point I wanted to bring up here, because Bogdan played bishop takes g4 here, which is a very natural move. But you can definitely make an argument that giving black tempi to create counterplay on the king side with h5, h4, which is what will happen if you take on g4 in this position, of course, because the bishop will instantly get attacked. Black needs a source of proactive counterplay in this position, and generating play along the h file is definitely one of the ways to create that counterplay. So you can definitely make an argument for playing something like rook fe1 instead. And as the round was going on live, I was wondering if this was stronger, but I checked it a little bit this morning, and the position that arises after, let's say, queen g7, and then white opens some more files on the queen side with b3 and then a4 to follow up. But this position is still quite unclear, because black is quite solid, and the king on c8 it looks like there's a lot of open files around the black king, but getting to the black king is not going to be very easy. And one of the things which definitely is an argument for taking on g4 in a starting position, if you compare what happened in the game with this position, which I was just discussing, the bishop on e2 here is incredibly restricted because it cannot get to f3, this pawn is still alive. It doesn't really have any particular future on this diagonal. I like how the entire discussion so far is on the king design. It is an unusually well endowed king, to be sure, but I like how nobody discusses anything else. It's very on brand, and keep it up, guys. That's what we like to see. So yeah, in this position, obviously, if white gets to the king somehow, it will be very, very bad for black, but it's not clear how you do that. So bishop takes g4 is a very logical move, and I don't think it's a mistake in any way, shape, or form. Anish, of course, did play h5, h5, rook fe1, queen f6, bishop f3, and in this position, black has an interesting dilemma. You can play h4, which is what Anish did, or you can play knight c5, trying to get this knight to d3, and that was I'm pretty sure that was a difficult choice for Anish, because this also looks very, very logical. But he did go with the opening of the h file by h4. Bogdan instantly started opening up things on the queen side. Can white try to go for a queen trade with queen c3? You can, but the thing is, I don't know exactly which position you're talking about. Perhaps like if you take on g4, do you mean before even taking on g4 or after the capture on g4? Let's say in this position, if you trade queens, I don't think white is better in the endgame at all. The point of these endgames is that, in particular, because of how ruined the white structure on the queen side is, and black has 2 pawns for the exchange anyway, I don't think this is in any way a problem for black. I think Bogdan went for the correct plan here of trying to open up the queen side and trying to get to the king. So you play b3. This is what happened in the game. cb3, queen b3, hg, fg, and here Anish played queen g7. In fact, this is probably a reasonably serious inaccuracy, because instead of queen g7 you can play queen g5. It seems like those two are very, very similar, but having the option of playing queen c5 check is reasonably important in quite a lot of positions. So Anish played queen g7 instead, and now Bogdan played queen d3, and black is suddenly in quite a lot of trouble here, because the queen is coming in. Knight c5, queen d6 doesn't stop it really in any kind of useful fashion. And if you take on g3 here, white just takes on d7 and then takes on f7, and it turns out that queen h2 is, I mean, maybe not one check. I was going to say one check. It's more than one check, but they don't actually give black very much. g3 is playable here. I suspect something like king e2 is also playable, but I think g3 is the most practical way of dealing with this. And the reason I even wanted to show you this game, honestly, is very specifically the position after Anish played knight c7, queen d6, and here Anish played c5, because black does need to somehow make the bishop on b7 participate in the game, or perhaps trade it off. And I wanted to show you this position, and I wanted to use this this moment to sort of warm us all up a little bit by asking you what do you think white should play here. some of you may have seen, I don't know, if you watched the game live as I did, perhaps I suspect some of you have seen the answer during the live broadcast. I don't really want to accuse Type Hyperchess of knowing the answer, but there is a very cute little combo here, which basically wins the game on the spot. And it's good that you're saying rook e5. I think finding rook e5, or at least starting to calculate rook e5 in this position is very logical. But you have to have a reply to queen takes g3, because of course I'm pretty sure the reason rook e5 was not played in the game wasn't because Bogdan did not see the idea at all. It's exactly as Chess Fan just stated in chat. You need to you get to queen g3 and you realize there is now this pin along this diagonal. If you take on c5, a lot of pieces get traded, and yes, white is better, but it's not at all a foregone conclusion that white will win this endgame. But there is a much stronger move after queen takes g3, and that move you can definitely miss. And yeah, now two of you are correctly indicating that you can play rook h5. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he didn't see rook h5. I'm pretty sure this is what happened here. And this is the position I wanted to show you, and this is the position I specifically wanted to start with, just as a kind of a small tactical example, because it's not such a it's a combo that you see in chess games. Of course, it's not the first of its kind, but it's something you can definitely miss in a game. And as Tall as Sloth says, even Hikaru, I assume Hikaru was covering it live and he didn't spot it. It's very, very easy sort of in-game or commentating live without engines to not spot this type of a tactic. And the point, of course, is that now white stopped queen h2 check, and both of black's heavy pieces are hanging, and after queen takes d6, rook h8, king d7, rook d6, king d6, and bishop takes b7, black has some very, very slight drawing chances because they do have 3 pawns for the rook. But objectively speaking, this position, as long as you're careful, you are going to win this with white. So this is the high point of round 1. Honestly, there was really not very much else to talk about in round 1. So we'll switch to the game from round 2. This game, and this is a game which hang on a second, I need to change the names. All of these things are as you can see, I'm my own producer here, so things are not instantaneous. But yeah, this is a game between MVL and once again the young Romanian player who has started really, really well. He's still doing fine, but the start he had almost beating Anish in round 1, and then this game was very, very exciting. This is obviously an open Spanish position, and they play the line which is not, I think, as topical and as central to the open Spanish as after knight b2. I'll show you exactly what I mean. Knight b2, bishop b7, and c3 is arguably the absolute main line of the open Spanish. Do I see a bright future for him? I was very, very impressed with him even all those years ago. I can't remember exactly which year it was. I think it was 2017 when I played my last Gibraltar on record so far, and I was very impressed by him then. I thought he was sharp. He was clearly very motivated, very, very devoted to chess. You can see, sometimes you meet young players where you can just instantly see that they kind of live and breathe chess, and it's always very difficult to judge how far somebody will go. I'm not pretending to have any kind of a set answers on what's in his future, but I think he is a very, very talented player. Will you be doing regular content for? Yeah, I'm one of Kasparovchess ambassadors. I've not been doing much so far because travel is difficult, and getting to, let's say, the Paris studio to record some content has been problematic so far, but it's becoming somewhat easier, and I'm definitely going to be doing sort of as much as possible to promote the platform. So the main line in this position is knight c5, bishop c2, and d5, d4, and this is you don't like my bookshelves? This is very upsetting, Sloth. This is very, like, look at those bookshelves. They are stunning. This line has been very heavily discussed for quite some time. There was a recent Nakamura-Carlsen game in which Magnus declined to play d4, d3, which is by far the main line. In this position, and Magnus instead played dc3, and then in this position queen d7. It did not go particularly well for him. That last game that they played in this line, Hikaru won very, very convincingly, but it's whenever Magnus does something slightly offbeat in any kind of an opening, you kind of pay attention these days, because Magnus is, he went from just being very happy to play any position to being clearly one of the best, if not the best prepared player in the world. So when he does something in an open Spanish like this, you kind of make a mental note that maybe this is playable. But instead of all this, Bogdan played castles, which is also a line that has returned to top level chess recently. Castles with the idea of meeting bishop c2 with f5. The only thing the bookshelf is missing is a bottle of liquor or two. Yeah, it's on a different bookshelf. The one off camera. So this line has been played. Has been played recently by a number of strong players. There was a recent game between Anish Giri on the white side against Anton Giharo, and some other games as well. MVL, I was quite curious to see the timings for this, because I think I switched I always have the tab with the games open whenever a tournament of this strength is going on. I'm a very, very, I'm a compulsive viewer of live chess. I don't really miss live chess if there's live chess to watch. But I have the tab open, but I don't keep it on my screen at all times. And I think the first time I seriously started looking through the games of that round was maybe 3 or 4 moves later, and I did not really pay too much attention to how quickly MVL made all these moves. And when I checked this morning, preparing for this show, you are very perspective, Alex. I am indeed not Kasparov. Much to my dismay. I figured that MVL had a very specific improvement over maybe in particular the Giri David Anton game, but he spent something like 20 minutes on the next 4 moves, which I think indicates that maybe he was either remembering something, or perhaps actually somewhat ad-libbing, using common sense. Anish played rook e1 here, bishop g4, h3, bishop h5, knight f1, and bishop c5. We will see a position very similar to this in a moment. But Anish, quite interestingly, played knight g3, bishop takes f3, and gf in this position, which is quite unusual, I feel. I don't think you see ideas like this very often. Just, quite voluntarily ruining your own kingside structure like this. But he did go on to win that game, and I was wondering if maybe MVL was slightly inspired by that game, but decided to include a4, because MVL did start with a4 here. But I'm still not entirely sure how deep MVL's prep was in this game. Black played b4, which is quite logical because you don't really want to be calculating those trades on every single move. You could also probably make an argument for something like queen d7 just to develop an additional piece, and bishop f5 becomes an idea. But black did play b4, rook e1, bishop g4, and in this position MVL played knight f1 straight away without the inclusion of h3, bishop h5, which is an interesting a little change, making ideas of knight e3, for instance, much more interesting because the bishop can be attacked while it's still on g4. It's hard to judge, if this is stronger or weaker than playing the same with the inclusion. I just wanted to show you some interesting positions from later in the game. Here, Bogdan made an interesting choice of not including BC, BC. I don't know which is stronger, and there's a lot of very subtle differences here. Let's say if you go BC3, BC3, bishop c5, and white plays exactly as MVL played in the game, bishop e3, d4, cd4, knight d4, you get all of these trades in, just as in the game, but without those two pawns. Now, after rook a d1, black has a very important additional resource of putting the queen on b4, where white does not really have a very easy way to attack it, and the queen also has decent visibility and decent control over the squares on the fourth rank. So that would be a major difference to what you will see in the game, but I don't know if it's necessarily much stronger than what Bogdan did. He played bishop c5 straight away. Anish played bishop, Anish, not Anish, of course. MVL played bishop e3 here, d4, cd4, knight d4, bishop d4, bishop f3, takes, and interestingly, queen takes d4, which does look like, I think most of us would play queen takes d4 in this position because it looks just so logical. You attack the pawn on b2, you put additional pressure on the f2 pawn, which is obviously very, very important. Like a threat of something like knight g4 in this position looks mighty frightening. There is a tactical reason why this is not great. And you can, I think the machine, if you let it run in this position, does suggest that taking with the bishop and meeting rook a d1 with queen d6, knight g3, queen c5, unpinning the bishop, also sidestepping the knight f5 fork, and after rook e2, taking away the f5 square altogether. It does make a lot of sense, but I think it's not impossible to make these types of moves in a practical game, but you do need a reason to believe that you are worse after queen takes d4, and this is, I think, the difficult part, because I have a pretty strong suspicion that Bogdan felt that he was just making a draw here. Rook a d1, very logical move, because you do need to don't scare me with mosquitoes. Mosquitoes definitely are here, but they aren't eating me right now. If they start, it will become a problem. Queen takes b2. Rook e2 is a very nice little move in this position, creating threats to the black queen. Queen goes to c3, we play rook d3, queen goes to a1. And I'm pretty sure that when Bogdan was calculating these lines, he sort of assumed that white will not have anything stronger here than the repetition of rook d1, rook d3. It was kind of interesting to watch this live, because I was talking to my friends at the time, and when I watch strong tournaments live these days at home when I'm not doing commentary, I generally watch it with the engine switched on, because I've become lazy in my old age. And thanks, Dark Knight. And I immediately noticed that the engine really likes this move g2, g4 in this position. And MVL repeated once instead. He played rook d1, queen c3, rook d3, queen a1, and started thinking again. And at this point, I started discussing with my group of friends whether it is easy or not to actually find the move g2, g4 in this position. And I wanted to maybe, this is probably going to be the the main conversation about this game has to be about this position and exactly how you are supposed to get to the point where you realize that g4 might be strong. So I think what happened with MVL, and MVL importantly, like if you have 20 minutes in this position, you probably take the repetition, because the thought process that results in you finally playing g4 here is not easy. But I think it's quite possible, because what goes through your mind is, at first you start looking for something forcing that might win the game, because you do have rooks on the central files, and black has no rooks on the central files. You have a strong bishop on c2, you have some kinds of check from b3, you have queen f5 ideas with batteries on this diagonal, and you start looking for immediate solutions. And you spend, I don't know, the next 5, 7, 10 minutes looking for something to attack immediately. And you realize that there's really nothing here that you can attack immediately, at least not very efficiently. But I think while you calculate those lines, you also realize that despite seemingly black having a lot of pieces aimed at the f2 pawn, black currently does not have any threats at all either. Like black's next move is probably something like king h8 in most cases, because you cannot really play knight g4 or honestly knight anywhere because of queen d5 check, queen takes c5. And that means that you have a move here to spend on something that makes your position stronger. And also you get to the point where you realize that the knight on f6, it's not really jumping anywhere, but it does control a lot of extremely important squares, d5 and also h7, which is very, very relevant in this position. And I think somewhere around that point, if you have enough time to actually sort of go in depth and look at this properly, why would you tell me that, Apache Chief? I did not want to know that. Oof. And then perhaps you get to the move g4. I think the black queen is stuck, so why not do stuff that might be risky, and then if it fails you can take the perpetual. I'm not sure you will have the perpetual. As you will see in the game, let's say after g4, if black plays king h8, with the king no longer on this diagonal, if you try repeating here, queen c4 is probably very, very strong. So this is, I mean, maybe I misunderstood you, Celestia. Having the perpetual as a fallback is useful because you know that you can spend, I don't know, 40 minutes on the move here, and if you find nothing, then you can take the perpetual. But you can take the, like, you probably, if you actually do something risky that you've been considering for 40 minutes, then the perpetual probably disappears. So it's a very useful kind of a backup to have, but in most cases you have to decide now. You can't really make some kind of an extremely committal move like g4 in this position, and you probably no longer have this this security. But it's a very strong move because we are unpinning, well, not unpinning yet, but creating the g2 square for the king so that the knight can come out. But most importantly, we are creating a very strong threat of g5. And for instance, if black does play king h8 here, g5, knight g8, which looks kind of sensible, white goes queen h3, and here there's a very beautiful threat. I mean, many things are threatened here, but the most beautiful one, of course, is after, let's say, rook a8, you can play queen h7, king takes h7, and rook h3, double mate, which is quite a beautiful construction. Would it be good to trade queens with rook d1, queen c3, bishop b3 check? Not really. I think, let's say you take on c3, you're not even guaranteed to win this pawn back. You are currently a pawn down, so I think the queen trade was never really part of MVL's equation here. Yeah, this is a very cute mate. Yeah, let's put it on the board again. This is quite a quite a beautiful construction. And this is why black actually needs to distract the bishop from c2 for one move. b3 is strictly the only move, and as I said, Bogdan is extremely tactically aware, and he played b3 quite quickly as well. I don't think it's an easy move to make, because you're giving up your extra pawn and you're giving it up with check. But it's very important to move the bishop away from okay, I'm back to drawing really impossible arrows. And then we come to the second talking point, which is g5 is logical here, knight g8, queen d5 is also logical. We are attacking something with every move. Bishop d6, rook h3. Now we are probably threatening some sort of mate. So g7, g6 has to be played. This is the position where, honestly, like, this is not a question you can ask. I'm on very good terms with MVL, but I don't think I can ask him, because it's like, you know, poking a finger into an open wound. But I really don't understand the thought process which led him to make the move he made in this position. It's not even that he missed something which is quite logical. The computer suggests that you're supposed to play queen e6 here. Why not take with rook? Take what exactly? Vishwasnegi. Like rook h7, I don't think rook h7 works yet. If you mean immediate rook h7, take with rook on b3. Yeah, you could, but it also distracts us from our own game plan. I assume the point is that now queen d4 with queen g4 check suddenly becomes possible. I think that's probably one of the major reasons why b3 is so interesting. That you are trying to distract white from controlling the important squares, and if you allow the black queen to return, it will probably be able to get traded on the g4 square later. So back to this position. Queen e6 is the best move in this position, which I think is quite logical. We are attacking the g7, g6 square. And after queen g7, once again, the best move in this position is not very difficult to make. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Proust. You just play knight g3. I say just, it's maybe slightly dismissive to say just, but I mean, developing the final inactive piece, trying to get it to the e4 square, is quite logical. And after bishop f4, knight e4 is okay, but black might be able to consolidate with rook a8, and bishop c2 is very strong in this position, just going after the g6 pawn. And white is significantly better. I wouldn't say winning, but white is much better in this position. Isn't knight e3 also an idea? Yeah, definitely is, but I think getting it here is like knight e3, bishop f4, your pawn on g5 is sort of in trouble. So I think it's more logical to aim it towards the e4 square in general. But yeah, knight e3 also fine. I think another issue with knight e3 is that you are allowing rook a8, and keeping it locked in on a8 is quite useful. But the bigger question is, honestly, not why he didn't play queen e6, but why would he ever play queen d3? Because queen d3 creates exactly the same threat, only it allows rook f5. And I just don't quite understand how a player as brilliant and as strong as MVL is misses rook f5 in this position. I think it's, like, generally, it probably is the first move you consider when you think about this position with white. Yes, you've created some threats. Yes, let's say knight e7, you suddenly have a mate in 3 here with rook h7 and queen h3 and queen h6. But nobody's going to blunder mate in 3 against you. And rook f5 does look extremely logical. And as chess fans said, MVL pretty much collapsed after rook f5 because I guess he was just sitting there. I know this frame of mind very well, where you're just sitting there cursing at yourself because you just can't believe you've made this move. Still, he lost this position a lot faster than he normally would. I think he is generally a very good defender of unpleasant positions. But yeah, it's a very, very strange sequence, playing queen d3 and then following it up with queen c3, queen c3, rook c3, rook g5, knight g3, knight f6, and like 5 moves later he also blundered an additional pawn, and MVL said he was upset. Yeah, I think that was quite clear, but yeah, I'm really not used to MVL missing things like rook f5, so I was very shocked, honestly. He is too good of a player in like 99% of cases to miss a thing like this. So this resulted in a victory for Bogdan Deak in round 2, and generally the results of round 2 were like so. You can see that people started having decisive games. Fabiano also won a reasonably comfortable game on the white side against Constantin Lupulescu. And we will switch to probably the way it's going, the final game. The final game we will be talking about, and that is the game between the two Americans, Wesley against Fabi, played in round 3, I believe. I may have mixed up the rounds there a little bit. I'm losing track of things a bit, and this was a very interesting game as well. In particular, here I don't know how interesting what I was sort of planning to say about this game will be to the general population, because there is a lot of very interesting, cute subtleties in the opening here, which I could spend, the next half an hour talking about. But there was also a kind of a very interesting turnaround between, let's say, moves 10 and 15 in this game, where Black could have played a lot more actively than Fabi played. So c4 a5, sort of the classical English opening. Perhaps maybe the most important theoretical development in recent years in the classical English is the fact that in the sort of the absolute main line. Hang on a second. Why can't I make moves in this position? Let's go there through the other move order. In the classical 4 knights c4 e5 English with g3, Black started playing this bishop c5 line. This is something that started happening reasonably recently. I think it came into prominence at most, I think, 5 years ago. Maybe even less than that, and this is currently absolutely the main weapon for Black if White plays the 4 knights g3 lines, which is why people have started looking at weird move orders, trying to not allow Black to do that. And this is what we've seen in this game between Wesley versus Fabi. Wesley started with g3, knight f6, bishop g2. Black plays bishop c5 here. This is the most flexible way of dealing with the white move order here, because you do want to play bishop c5, but you also want to preserve the flexibility of playing either knight c6 or c6 later. And in this position, obviously, if you play knight f3, Black can go e4. Black can also go knight c6. So people have been playing d3 quite a bit, and there's been a lot of reasonably heavy traffic in this line recently. There were actually 2 games played in the Yekaterinburg candidates starting from this position. In round 1, Alexander Grishuk played this against Kirill Alexeyenko, and Kirill just played d5, cd5, knight d5, knight c3, and this is why white is keeping the knight on g1 here. White is trying to make sure that black needs to commit to something. Black cannot keep the knight on d5 indefinitely, so black either has to play knight b6 or knight f6 or take on c3, and Kirill actually did end up taking on c3. Alexander Grishuk himself played knight b6 in this position against Ding Liren in Huntley 2019. So there's this whole discussion, and Magnus Carlsen himself in one of the online tour events last year played castles in this position, knight c3 and h6 against Ding Liren. But there's also been a reasonable amount of traffic in the line starting with d3 and c6. And this is what Fabiano played. Knight f3, d6, castles, castles, knight c3. In this position, in the candidates, Hao played rook e8 instead of the move a5 that Fabi chose against Wesley, and actually ended up winning that game, but Ding Liren was, I think, a little bit better for the vast majority of that game. Why White might still want to play e3 and d4? Yeah, e3 and d4 is definitely a plan that you see in a few of those games, and I'm just about to come to that. But apart from rook e8, a5 has been played by strong players as well. And for instance, in an over-the-board GCT event in Calcutta in 2019, Anish played b3, rook e8, e3 here against Vishy, and he ended up winning that game, but I don't think he had a particularly good position out of the opening. Which is, I guess, why Wesley decided to deviate here, and he started fighting for the center straight away with d3, d4. But yeah, as Omiroz points out, we have lost the tempo here by starting with d3 and now playing d4. E takes d4, knight takes d4, and here Fabi made a very, very interesting committal move, a5, a4, putting the pawn on a vulnerable square, but obviously you cannot take yet because you will just lose a piece. The point of playing a5, a4 here is you are stopping knight b3 ideas. You're also not preventing exactly, but you are heavily discouraging white from playing b2, b3, because a takes b3, in particular with the rook still on a8 and a1, white will have to recapture with a piece, not the pawn, because of the pin. Which I guess is why Wesley played rook b1, Fabi played rook e8, and Wesley played e3 here. I think if you want to play e3, especially depending on what I will show you in a moment, you probably want to be playing e3 here without the inclusion of rook b1 and rook e8. But there is a very specific tactical reason for that, so I don't think we can blame Wesley for starting with rook b1. So rook b1, rook e8, e3, and here, somewhat surprisingly, Fabi made a number of really suboptimal moves. I think, you know, I have to be critical of the way Fabi chose to play the next sequence, even though like what I think is the absolute best continuation here is not that easy to evaluate correctly. The best move here for black, I'm pretty sure, is to play bishop g4, and the point of this move is twofold. If white plays queen c2, you can actually play queen d7 here. The point being that we are preparing to skewer the rook on b1, and white is just in immediate tactical trouble. And in fact, even without white taking on a4, this is already a very, very strong threat. Perhaps even forcing white to play rook a1. And in this position, the computer suggests black can even play d6, d5, starting to aggressively fight for the control over the central squares. And white is just not going to enjoy this very much, as I discovered. Frankly, to my shock, I did not think white can be worse here. But the engines actually are suggesting that white is already the side that is fighting for equality here. But this is extremely concrete, because I think the tactical justification for all of this is knight a4, bishop d4, e d4, and now rook e2, queen b3, and d takes c4. And you cannot take, because b5 is obviously a very strong follow-up. And perhaps even more shockingly, after bishop g4, f3, black just goes bishop h5, knight takes a4, bishop g6, rook a1. And in this position, when I first started thinking about this, because I think I noticed during the game that the engine was suggesting bishop g4, and my idea when I analyzed this blindfold as a kind of a thought exercise was that probably black does something like this. And it is indeed providing black with a very, very good compensation after something like c takes b5, c takes b5, knight c3, and then b5, b4, and black has excellent squares for his pieces and tremendous compensation. But what really, really shocked me is that I ran a decent engine on this position, and the decent engine suggested you can just play bishop a7, and your compensation is not just enough. It was very strongly suggesting white should be fighting for equality here, after something like knight c3, knight a6, with a very straightforward idea of pushing for d6, d5, and then when the center gets open, the second rook goes to d8. And more importantly, because white had to play f2, f3, the pressure against the e3 pawn in general, and the advantage in development black has here, provides black with absolutely fantastic play. This honestly, even though I've been analyzing with engines for quite some time, and I'm kind of used to dynamics being extremely important, and I like playing a positional sacrifice like this would be, I would enjoy playing this a lot, but it still surprises me when I see engines just flat out preferring black in a position like this. Instead of all this, after e3, Fabi made a very human move of protecting the a5 pawn by queen a5, bishop d2, bishop g4. Here as well, I think knight bd7 is probably a wiser choice, because I think if white does exactly the same as in the game, it is hugely important that black gets to play knight e5 straight away, attacking the pawn on c4. Now bishop g4 is an idea, bishop f5 is an idea. This is very, very playable for black. But Fabi played bishop g4, f3, and bishop h5, knight e4. And here, sort of purely as curiosity, let's start telling people how that will work. I think that should. Where did that go? That worked yesterday. Why isn't it working today? Well, we'll get to that in a moment. Purely as curiosity, I will mention that the engine suggests playing queen a6 here, just completely ignoring the trade on f6 and saying that this is playable for black. Once again, I don't think there are very many people on planet Earth which are capable of making this move. I just don't believe you can do this. Doesn't seem to be working, guys, so let's just not spam it. I'll tell you I'll tell you how it works. I created that command myself yesterday, so I feel personally attacked, but that's nothing new. Anyway, queen d8, knight c5, dc5, knight e2, and in this position, you start seeing how black could become unhappy, because this bishop now is on h5. The only square it can go to in any kind of near future is g6, and then it will get locked down by 3-4, and black will continue playing pretty much with this light piece completely out of play. And this is what we've seen in the game. After queen d3, knight f4, queen c4, Wesley played b3 here. He could have just started with bishop c3, bishop g6, and e4 anyway. And then let's say after knight bd7, there's a very cute idea of playing rook f2 and then bishop f1, trying to hunt down this queen on c4, because the knight on f4 actually is taking away a lot of the very good squares that it can go to. But what Wesley has done in the game is also very sensible. b3, a b3, queen b5, e4, bishop g6, bishop c3. And here I think Wesley in an interview said himself that he felt that knight a6, which Fabi played in this position, was a mistake, and Fabi should have instead played knight bd7. But even after knight bd7, let's say queen d2, queen b6, queen b2, I think most people would prefer to play this position with white, because black's counterplay on the queen side is not really starting yet, and this bishop on g6 is just extremely unhappy. And once white stabilizes with some sort of rook f2, for instance, you can even go in trying to, you know, corral it and drive it into even further bad squares. Like if you, whoops, that's not a move. If you get black to play h6 and then bishop h7, it might never come out. But after knight a6, h4, h5, queen c1, king h7, rook d1, rook d8, and queen b2. I'm sort of fast forwarding here because without even having to do anything particularly difficult to find, white is pretty much completely winning now, because this pressure along the long diagonal is impossible to handle, and Fabi had to shed a lot of material here just to survive immediately, and did not, I think to nobody's great surprise, did not manage to hold this endgame. Eventually white broke open on the king side, made enough progress, and won. And we are almost at the 1 hour mark, so I think this probably will be the last game I will show you. There were only 6 decisive games in the tournament. I had one more I could have talked about, but I think we want to sort of slowly start switching to the banter part of the show. I'll show you the results for the rounds and what's in front of us when the tournament resumes tomorrow. So round 3 featured a win for Constantin Lupulescu against Anish Giri. That was the other game we could have spoken about, because I think Anish found a very, very interesting opening setup on the black side in an English line. I played myself and was actually slightly better out of the opening, and then even much better, and ended up losing that game because Lupulescu defended very well and then exploited some time travel inaccuracies by Anish. In round 4, as I mentioned, the game I just showed you wasn't round 3, it was round 4. Wesley beat Fabi, there were 3 draws, and also Alexander Grishuk won a very long, very difficult technical game against Deak, where Bogdan defended really, really well for about 5 hours and then finally made one mistake, and that one mistake was enough for Sasha to convert his advantage. And in round 5, we saw 4 draws, and Shahryar Mamedyarov won a very nice game against Constantin Lupulescu, where I think both players were quite happy to play a very non-standard, very wild position out of the opening. And in the end, I think Shahryar's sort of general experience told, and towards the first time control, Konstantin's position kind of collapsed. And the standings after round 5 are looking like this. There's a group of people on +1. We are so far, as I've mentioned, it has been somewhat quiet, but tournaments like this have been known to kind of explode into action towards the later stages. So don't despair. We could very easily see a lot of blood towards the end. But so far, yeah, 6 decisive games out of 25. 3 people on +1. A bunch of people on 50%, of course. And nobody below -1. The locals doing very, very creditably. And just generally, I think a very, as you can see, a very tight field with 3 people on +1, 3 people on -1. And in round 6, which starts tomorrow, we have these pairings, which should be quite good. We get Wesley against Anish, which is I think a very good pairing, because Wesley generally does press with white, in particular if he's given an opportunity, and Anish is extremely booked up. I'm still waiting for somebody to allow Anish to play the dragon. That would be, you know, obviously good promo for the book and everything. MVL Caruana is always a good game. Mamidyarov Aranyan is, you know, these have been known to be quite interesting. Alexander Grishuk tied in the lead for now, and playing white against Lupulescu. I think he will be very, very interested. And as a final dish of the day, we get Deak with white against Rajabov, and I think this might be the game where Timur is finally absolutely forced into playing chess, which I think is good for everybody. He is an extremely strong player, and from what I know about Bogdan, he probably will not be all too interested in making a short theoretical draw there, which is I think it bodes well for this game being a lot more interesting than you know the previous Rajabov games in this tournament. But of course, I mean, no guarantees. We will see how that works. And now we switch to the banter part. Let me switch to a different theme. There we go. So how this works, I can actually, yeah, I have already a decent amount of challenges, so people have figured out how this works. But you can go in, you can head into the play menu, and then in the play a friend window, you can start typing Paul Borta into that box, and that will get you an opportunity to challenge me. And yeah, preferably 3 or 5 minutes. I don't really play bullet, so yeah, well, one of those. And one current slightly unusual thing about challenging people on Kasparovchess is that let's just start playing chess and then I can continue talking. Challenges expire reasonably quickly. So that actually, whoops, it did not time out. So timing the challenges so that they coincide with me finishing the previous game is probably a good strategy, because they don't survive forever, which is slightly unusual and has to be kept in mind. And this is not, I think, how you are supposed to play the bird opening on the white side of it, honestly. I think creating this structure with the bishop on c1, it's not that this is unplayable, but I would probably not do this. Although the way I reacted, this might be this might be okay, in particular if the bishop comes out via the h4 diagonal. Let's start trying to generate some activity on the queen side here. Yeah, I've just realized why the people are so excited. When I was setting up my account, I switched the pieces font for the slightly more usual pieces. So those of you who are already missing the absolutely, you know, the chunky king from the previous screen, you will be sorely disappointed for the next hour. The chunkster is gone. So what do we do here? I kind of want to open files on the queen side, but I don't want to give the bishop the a3 square. I think opening just the c file and not the b file might be the way to go, like just going c takes d4, and if c takes d4, just playing queen c7. And somewhat boringly, the plan here is probably to play queen c2, ask for this queen trade, and then, you know, plan some sort of an invasion along the c file. It's not going to be very easy to make much progress here, but obviously this is a I actually blundered the b4 pawn, but I'm not that unhappy because I will get very good compensation due to the very active queen on c2 and my complete control over the only file on the board. Only open file on the board, of course, is what I mean. How do you do against Gary in Blitz? We played a decent amount of training Blitz at some point. I am not a favorite there, despite, you know, me still supposedly being an active chess player and Gary playing once a year at most. I am not a favorite there. On a good day, I hold my own. But I also definitely there were days where I just got completely destroyed, for sure. And when we were playing training games in preparation for Gary playing in the 960 thing in St. Louis, I also got severely beat up in 960. Gary is good at chess. Hot take number 1 today. Okay, this is actually kind of annoying because I assumed this move was completely impossible, and it's not impossible at all. I thought I could take, but white can take with the bishop and then of course not take with the rook. I am kind of annoyed at myself. I'm trying to figure out how much I can sacrifice here. Probably not very much. Let's try to keep at least some material alive. This way, with the queen on f5, I'm supporting the c8 square, so I don't lose the rook to queen b8 check. But yeah, completely missing rook c. I knew I was supposed to start with queen d3. I actually wanted to start with queen d3, and then I didn't for some reason, which is stupid. Yeah, now, well, hang on a second. This is probably not a good move because I can do this and this. Why is it not called Fischerandom anymore? People still call it Fischerandom in conversations, but I think 960 is basically the reason, as I understand it, is twofold. One is, you know, potential legal issues with using the name Fischerandom, and people wanting to have something easily recognizable which as a kind of a trademark belong to them. And also, you know, Fischer definitely was one of the best players in history, but his name is not entirely controversy free, let's put it like this. It tells me I'm on a roll, and I've won 3 live rated games in a row. Whose name is entirely controversy free? Yeah, I mean nobody's, but there is that layer to it, certainly. I mean, I wasn't, you know, in the room when the decision to you know, create 960 and start calling it 960 was made, but you know, I must imagine it was at least part of the discussion. Not sure why the game is not starting. We'll wait for a bit and then oh, there it is. Wonderful. Yeah, I wouldn't mind at all a series. It's not like I have no objection to it still being called Fish Random. But I think 960 will eventually be sort of much more instantly recognizable. Not entirely sure what my opponent is aiming for here, because this is some kind of a mishmash. If you play the bishop e2 Najdorf, you're kind of expected to castle kingside, and these moves sort of very heavily indicate that my opponent is planning to castle queenside. And if you want to castle queenside, I thought you'd play the dragon here, but I can see, yeah, like at least you know, give me an Adino or something. If you end up castling queenside in these types of positions, bishop e2 is just a flat out a wasted tempo. And playing knight d5 runs into this issue. Sometimes it's still playable despite the pawn on d5. Like there are definitely some lines in which white just gives up the pawn on d5 and plays for compensation. But I think with the bishop on e2, like with the tempi that white spent here, on the previous moves, you no longer really have that pawn sacrifice as a convincing option. One thing I should be looking not to allow, if I can help it, is this plan of knight a5, knight c6. Yeah, I'm seeing those messages about Polborta busy. Yeah, challenging me while I'm in game is apparently not as easy as you would hope. You can play a4 here. I'm looking at this position. I think probably a4 is quite decent, but I am in time to just castle. I don't want to reply with b4, because that with after a4, a5 creates a weakness on the b4 square, which can be exploited by like rook a4 and so on. c4 we can take or we can ignore it for one move. Both options are solid. I'll take for now, but now knight a5 c6 is really something I want to stop, so I'll spend a tempo playing a6 a5 here, specifically so that this knight on b3 cannot be transferred over to the c6 square so easily. Yeah, arrows are, I have so much experience drawing arrows and I'm still so completely rubbish at it. It's quite spectacular. What's the plan with the bishop? Mine or his? Mine ideally should be on this diagonal or perhaps this diagonal. His probably goes towards the c6 square, but it doesn't really do very much there. I have more than one Stefan the Small. Probably the one that kind of rankles the most is not winning the second World Cup in Baku in 2015. I mean, I'm extremely proud I won the one I did win, but winning two is that would really be an absolute crowning achievement of my career. I don't really rate my chances of becoming world champion at the age of 45 plus, you know, too highly, but winning 2 World Cups would have been good. I would have enjoyed that. That's for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's a fun topic, but like you have to realize I'm mainly joking about the jinx. My dad taught me very early on that, you know, the healthy thing is to assume if something goes wrong, it's because you've done something not to the best of your abilities. You versus Hikaru in a 10-game match. Who wins? Hikaru should be a large favorite against me these days. I used to have a very good score against him long time ago, but I don't think this is, you know, it's not current. Rook f1 is a decent option here, which I did not expect. I have a very cute move here. I can play bishop f2 check, pretending I blundered a piece. Let's do that actually, just for funsies. It's a cute little blunder. My opponent probably doesn't take it though, which will deprive me of an opportunity to... Okay, yeah, this is, I mean, it's not very rare, but it's a cute combo. Yeah, bishop f2 and immediately ask for take back, exactly, yeah. It's a cute combo. You don't get to play combos where the finishing touch is a discovered check with a pawn. You don't get them very often, so I kind of wanted to. Cheapo only player, yeah, very much so. I am once again reminded of the old Grishuk quote about the Svidler style, I think he called it, or the Svidler way of playing chess. He put it in a New in Chess commentary, so it kind of became an instant classic. He said the Svidler way of playing chess is play quickly, play confidently, play for tricks. Favorite as in, you know, personal favorite, yes, Sasha is my long time friend. I would very much enjoy him winning that tournament, but I'm on very good terms with like most of the tournament. So and if they allow take back play bishop f2 check again, that's really next level, Amiroz. Yeah, that's really good. Did you see Smyrna's fight in chess index? I know of its existence, but I don't know like what the actual index looks like, or my place in it, or anything like that. As a kind of a reasonably hot topic, I did see David post somewhere that of the top 50 players, Rajabov is at the bottom. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. I don't think I would be rated very highly anyway. I think I've become better over the years at not playing boring draws all the time, but I'm still, like, my historical record over my like 35 or 30-year career is not going to be great, because I definitely, there was a period, probably should add some lights, right? Because the sun has disappeared. Let there be light kind of thing. Yeah, like if you include the games I played in the period, let's say between 25 and 35 or so, there was a lot of draws in that period. Yeah, my lights are sort of semi-pro, so I have a button on the desktop which switches them on and off. If it's only 2015 to 2020, then I might not be, but I'm not as active as some of the other guys. It wouldn't really show very much anyway. I kind of want to push d3, d4 as early as possible, but I don't know how much it actually does. Still want to do it, so let's do it. He's a pro streamer, gotta have LED lights. Yeah, obviously, yeah. I remember, actually, remember is the wrong word. I was told afterwards because I was obviously playing, so I wasn't watching people covering the event. But when I was playing in a 960 tournament last year, I played Wesley in round 1, and that game was described on one of the streams covering the tournament as the 960 world champion against a Hearthstone streamer, which was, I mean, harsh but fair. Yeah, this was the issue with playing d4, is that I don't really know what I'm planning to do in this position, which is a bit annoying. Yeah, I have some Korchnoi stories, but Korchnoi stories without anything, you know, leading into them feels a bit weird. Queen f4, I completely missed that square even existed, so I kind of have to go back. It's not back, it was on d4 earlier, so maybe this is an achievement for me, but I have a feeling it's an achievement for my opponent. After queen c7 I can beg for a draw with bishop b6, but that would be... I mean, it's probably correct in terms of like what this position is like, but the issue with that is like who wants to watch me beg for draws in Banter blitzes? That doesn't seem like it's a thing, right? Might be the best move though. Let me think about this, because I don't like it on I don't know, ethical grounds. I mean, it's a bit weird to phrase it like this, but that's sort of what I mean. But if it's like strictly the only move and everything else more or less loses, I might have to. Yeah, I just don't see anything better, because if the knight just goes back, black retreats, pieces start coming out, I'm just a pawn down for really not very much. He said, and then played it anyway. Even rook takes b4. Yeah, I actually missed rook takes b4. I might have some play against that rook if my opponent takes, but yeah, honestly I just missed that move existed. And I'm, you know, very clearly punting here just to provide some very questionable entertainment value. Very questionable entertainment value. That question about my MMR is extremely upsetting, Akadna. That is unkind. Like, genuinely unkind. I wanted to go knight d6 here, but now I realize rook e d8 exists, which I failed to appreciate properly when I was going for this position. All of this is a bit of an oof, honestly. More than a bit, even. Just much worse here. Trying to plant the knight on d6 and then perhaps support it with this pawn. get at least some kind of positional compensation going. How do you see chess progressing after the reopening? Do you think there will be still major online tournaments? I don't think they will disappear. I think people who dislike them, and there is definitely a non-negligible number of people who dislike online chess and think it's not real chess and so on. This is a questionable move because now the spin is actually extremely annoying for black. They will find it much easier to pay no attention to it whatsoever, and obviously one thing actually that came up, I gave a simul and a talk recently in Moscow, and one thing that came up in the Q&A session was that online tournaments are... I should have done something. Knight of 8 is very good here. My opponent is playing a very, very good game actually. And I also have 52 seconds, which is an issue in and of itself. Online chess is excellent for strong players, but for players just below the cutoff, so to speak, for somebody, let's say, rated, I don't know, 2680, this past year must have been unbelievably difficult, right? Because you don't get the invites to the tour. You might get a wild card somewhere, but you're not even guaranteed one wild card because of how many strong players are sort of ahead of you in at the cab rank. And if you don't teach, you are like, there's really not very many things you can even do. It's very unclear, yeah, how you're supposed to make a living from chess in that rating range. And I mean, those are unbelievably strong players, obviously. Like, we're not talking about amateurs, we're talking about people in the, I don't know, in the world top 50 potentially, who don't really have very many places to go. Yeah, the choppiness of the mic is an issue I've had on my own stream as well. I don't know how to solve it. When this starts, it kind of starts, and I won on time apparently. I didn't even notice. In the final position, I think rook takes f2 is playable, actually. I don't think I was better. That was a well-played game by, as I mentioned, well-played game by my opponent. Some mistakes, but in general, definitely held their own. You're very welcome if that was you. I don't think it's the drivers, because I think the sound is reasonably clear for like the first hour and a half. That's the weird thing, is that it's not a consistent issue. It's an issue that comes and goes, which is very difficult to understand. Yeah, this is a very playable setup for my opponent here. I think I would quite like this position with black if I got it. Bishop b7 is a bit passive, though. I would play bishop d6 at least to provoke g3, and then maybe it can go back to e7. But I mean, it's not a mistake, but I would have started with bishop d6 there. Having your hometown named after you is obviously a great honor. Yeah. I normally don't talk about it. It's a bit embarrassing. I will be doing some streaming, Akad, and I will try to do more. I don't know if c5 is a good move here or not. I mean, it's definitely playable, but I don't know if I need to. Yeah, I can just play queen d2 here and not really touch anything in the structure. This is a good mic though, Octavius. This really is a good mic. I don't need a new one. I need to figure out what's happening to it in OBS. And I even have people to ask. I've been postponing that conversation. But I definitely don't need a new one. This is close to top of the line road mic. Yeah, the d6 pawn the d6 pawn is very weak in these types of structures. I don't know if I need to play f3. It kind of makes my position look slightly more gentrified, if that's the word, but I don't think I need to. I need to put as much pressure on d6 as possible, as quickly as possible. Yeah, and this is just a mistake, because this is one of the reasons why this position is a problem for black. My complete control of the b6 square. Probably not the word. I mean, I used it advisedly. I actually kind of know what it means. And it's not used very much in this context, but I don't think it's entirely wrong either. What opening would you play versus Captain Picard? I don't know. I am not a Trekkie. Regrettably. I have a feeling that I'm missing out on some good things, but I am not a Trekkie. Hello, Mohamdi. Could you have taken on before? I think you could have. Yeah, you played something else quickly enough that I was not really able to calculate properly what was going on there. But yeah, I had a feeling nothing really was wrong with that. Spotting books on bookshelves during the pandemic was one of my only joys while teaching online. What did you spot? Yeah, Wolf Hall is excellent. Yeah, I have book 3 on Kindle. I started it, and I somehow kind of stopped and didn't go back to it since. What's it called? The Candle and the Light, I think it's called, right? I can play b5 here, but once again, I don't know if I need to. I can just also restrict the... Yeah, I've been missing g4 altogether. Yeah, I'm just not playing on this side of the board at all. That's a different book 3, Jake. That's book 3 in the Wolf Hall series, which has definitely been released. G4, no, it's less. It was pretty good for me then, but no longer particularly good. I kind of want to play a4 and b5, but I also want to make sure I don't blunder anything on this side. I think f4 does a good job of stopping the counterplay. Yeah, I'm currently reading a kind of a surprisingly good hard sci-fi book called A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martin. I'll just in case my mic cuts out. Mirror and the Light. Yeah, as I said, I started it and then kind of gave up on it for some reason. It wasn't really fitting my mood properly. Sometimes good books just don't entirely. I wanted to play g3, knight f5, king f2 here, and now I realize g3 rook takes g5 exists. I am not playing this game at all well. I mean, the quote-unquote conversion phase of this game I have botched quite badly. Is it f? Don't scare me with the Fs, Jake. Yeah, I think I should have actually played b5 when I wanted to play b5. Now we have some kind of a... I'm still winning, but this is not clean. My starting advantage once I won the exchange was so large that it's very difficult to, you know, screw this up to such an extent that I will no longer be winning, but this is definitely not clean. Yeah, e5 has been an idea, it was an idea for a while in this position, for sure, yeah. But we're finally making some progress on the queen side, so I'm happy. Yeah, and this now should be a queen, right? Don't want to allow g3 check. I'm pretty sure I could have played a7, but there's really no reason to allow g3 check. We're winning hard enough here, so to speak, to just not allow any counterplay. Yeah, we can do this, for instance. Yeah, queen e5 pre-move would have been a bit of a mistake because knight e6 could have been played there, but we got there in the end. Will he do the same show after the turn? I think when Bucharest finishes, this is when I need to fly to Paris for the next next GCT, which I got a wildcard spot there, as I understand it, basically because travel from India currently is difficult. And Vishy just can't play, so the GCT needed a kind of a last minute replacement, and they thought of me. Yeah, it's been a while since I looked at this. This is not supposed to completely equalize, but it's also not bad at all for black. It's kind of a weird line. I think Vasily Ivanchuk, they wanted a young inciting player, exactly, yeah, and they got one. They got all of them things in one with me. Yeah, I think Vasily Ivanchuk played this line against me in the match of the century, which I don't know if, like, if I say match of the century, how many people in this chat will know what I'm talking about, or will like correctly understand which one I mean, because there is definitely more than one over the course of chess history which was called that. Yeah, exactly. Like people think 1972, or perhaps, and that I suspect is referring to the Fischer-Spassky, and I did not mean that. But there's also been those Soviet Union versus the world matches, which were, I think, called match of the century. But yeah, I played in the one in 2002, which was Russia versus the world. Did I just blunder the pawn on e4? Jeez. Why am I so blind today? I kind of assumed it was going in this direction, but it's not really. Yeah. This is bad. Yeah, now I have absolutely nothing for the pawn whatsoever. Like, this is just bad. I have no compensation. Black would be like, if you take a black pawn off the board here, I'm still worse. So yeah, not my most stellar moment. Honestly, the position is disgusting enough to want to resign, but I will persevere. Vader is using the force to cloud Peter's mind. Yeah, it's a veritable Vulcan mind meld. I'm trolling. I do appreciate those are from two different things. Yeah. Where does, like, bishop d2 c3 is kind of interesting, but I think it's supposed to go to g3 to keep things slightly safer around the white king. I think I'm supposed to take on c7 because, you know, not being a pawn down here is kind of important. My position is still extremely unpleasant, but at least the endgames are not instantly hopeless. Yeah, but it's still extremely annoying for me here, because yeah, the pawn on f5 is consistently weak, and I don't have a good way to get all of the rooks off the board. I was planning king f1 anyway, so this doesn't really concern me that much. Like, if queen f6, I want to take and play rook e1 actually. I can't do it here yet because there's queen c1 check in the final position, but it's definitely something that interests me. Because I can't really fight for the e-file in any other way. And the queen endgame now should be okay for me. This is a strange square for the queen. I think I can and should play f6 here. And now it becomes a little bit interesting because yeah, with the pawn on f6, like I have ways to sort of generate annoying ideas against the white king's queen side, and I can also try to gain space on the queen side. That's a very, very bad mistake by my opponent. I think this... I lost on time. Yeah, this is the one thing that I'm still kind of unused to the setup on Kasparovchess, because with the clocks being where they are, I haven't played enough blitz on this server to consistently look at them. So like, if I don't make a mental note to keep track of the clock, I just play as if I have all the time in the world, and then somebody loses on time and I just find out who when the game ends. But yeah, my opponent played a very nice game there. Started making mistakes pretty much only in the queen when we got to the queen's ending. So yeah, well played to the thief. Yeah, I can't say that today. Anakin, whatever. Not sure I should have allowed knight takes e4 there, honestly. This is a kind of a weird one, because No, I don't need to be. I don't need to be a friend. It's just that challenging through the friend play a friend interface is easier because you can type in the username, but we don't need to be actual friends on the site for that to work. Kind of want to push for something to open up on the queen side, but not really enjoying this position all that much. I'll be honest with you guys. Nizahe with the correct takes as usual. This is a very helpful move for me though, because now I can actually break the position open. I don't know why my opponent chose to play before there. Weakening the c3 pawn that way was never going to end particularly well. Regrettably, I think the cleanest way to win this position is to trade queens. But I can pass this decision on to my opponent and maybe he does something else. I think I took a pawn with like each of my last 5 moves there. Probably a couple more. Definitely not more than a couple more if they're 5 minutes games. If it's a 3-minute challenge, we might fit in 3, but probably just a couple more, and we'll call this a success because I think I managed not to break anything, which is quite spectacular for any kind of an interaction between me and a new platform. I think I normally manage to, and I will obviously now jinx it and something will break, but whenever I interact with a new platform of any kind, I normally manage to create unexpected issues. But seemingly none so far, which is very cheerful. And thanks for the kind words. You can play b5 in this position. You can also switch to a Benoni. Let's play a Benoni for once. Yeah, I don't think this needs to be done perpetual stalemate. I think you just go to the play menu, go to play a friend, and then start typing Paul Borta into the username box, and then it should offer you Paul Borta, and then there's a way to click on challenge. Ah, this is another channel where there's so far no exclamation mark Paul Borta. So that we can add it if we wanted to, but we probably shouldn't. My knowledge of actual Benoni theory is extremely rudimentary. Because there is no exclamation mark Paul Borta in this channel, I'll do the unthinkable and actually answer your question, 960 story. It's a Russian billiards term which means a really, really big miss. Something similar to like not even close or by a mile, that kind of a miss. Am I supposed to play h6 in this position and then maybe even g5? Because I don't think white can take on... yeah, Gashimov, yeah, I thought of Vugar when I played the Benoni. He wasn't the only good Benoni player of the last, I don't know, 20 years, but he's definitely the one you immediately think of. How bad is the Bino? It's playable. It's not that horrible. Do you remember the first ever chess match? Depending on what you mean by first ever. My first ever games were against my dad. And then there's a story which I remember extremely vaguely. When I turned 7, my parents took me to the district pioneer house to start me on some sort of formal chess training. And that pioneer house basically had 2 chess clubs, one for absolute beginners and one for slightly more advanced kids. And since until then I only played against my dad pretty much for maybe like half a year, maybe even less than that. My parents took me to the beginners section, and as a kind of a test of what I already knew and what I didn't, while they were talking to the nice lady who taught there, she set me up with a kid who was already a bit of a regular there, to play a couple of training games, and I beat him 2-1. I didn't win all the games, but I did beat him 2-1. And she came back, asked us what the result was, and upon learning that I won the match against somebody who was already there for maybe a year, she said, yeah, don't bother, just go upstairs and enroll in the more senior section. That kid's name, Albert Einstein. That's very good, Yargot. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was how you just couldn't avoid it, pretty much. In any kind of a reasonably large town, let alone a city the size of Leningrad, you didn't really have any other way of starting your progression. You invariably got to the local pioneer's house and got some coaching there, and that was always how you started. Yeah, I know, right, Johanna? I just, it's an absolutely abysmal quality, and I just can't keep it under control. I sort of stopped running commentary after my opponent took on f6, because you really don't give up this dark square bishop without a really good reason. Like bishop c1 is a better move in this position than bishop takes f6. There's no justification for doing this. And pawn pusher just gave me a clap. Which I will accept gratefully. Okay, I was about, well, that's a 10-minute challenge. I did not notice that. Is there a way for me to burn like 10 of them? 9 of them? No, I'm one of the ambassadors for the side, Zariski. Yeah, you can resign, but it's kind of disrespectful, honestly. And my opponent is playing reasonably quickly, but we're just not finishing this game in time if I continue. Can I offer him a draw, maybe? Because that really isn't the time control. Apologies, Lemon. It's on me. I should have noticed the time control before accepting the challenge. This probably should be the last one though. Whoa, okay. Queen c2 is playable, but not supposed to be great. And I think you're supposed to play Queen c7 to make sure that if d4 happens, white cannot recapture with the pawn. That's supposed to be clever, I think. I don't know if I need to play a6, but it feels logical not to allow knight b5. Yeah, I lost some games. Like my career on Kasparovchess started by me losing a training game against, I believe, the person who is currently talking to you under the moniker Kasparovchess. A very nice person. A person I quite like, but a person I will never live down losing to. No. No. Why would you say that? Why would you invoke the name? Also, I did preface it by saying a person I like, a nice person. And then you followed up by suggesting it was Lawrence. What is wrong with you people? Anyway, yeah, we're done. We're done doing the Lawrence bit. I actually quite like Lawrence. Shockingly. Lawrence provided me with, you know, so much free material over the years that, you know, how can I not? Am I even better in this position? I'm not entirely certain. E5 was a very good reply to c5, c4. I kind of underestimated it. I knew it could happen, but I was pretty sure I'm not supposed to worry. What's your favorite show right now? I enjoyed Mayor of Easttown. Loki started yesterday and is very watchable, but I don't think we can judge from just one episode if it's any good. Mayor of Easttown is good though. This is actually a good move, despite... Yeah, bishop b5 is just horrendous. That's a huge big oof, this move. I really should have played pretty much anything else. Yeah, I don't know, like, I sort of agree with the general sentiment there, Cheesy Driver, but I also don't really see how there would be. Like, where do you go from there? It's like, I mean, they did film season 2 and maybe even season 3 of Broadchurch, but with Broadchurch they left some things unresolved after the first season, whereas with Mare, like, I just don't really understand where it would go. Yeah, this is extremely annoying, and I have to fight for equality, and I think this is the way to fight for equality, but yeah, I'm very upset at... Bishop d6 is okay though. This probably is a draw now. Can I play for a win somehow? Like, I can just play something like bishop c3 and make a reasonably comfortable draw, but I'm trying to figure out if I can play for a win, but I don't think I can. It's not time to add a complaint counter. Yeah, there are some very, you know, structurally necessary fixtures missing, which will get added in the fullness of time, I'm sure. Ah, and yeah, we lost on time as well. Yeah, fair enough. I will need to get used to noticing my clock a lot better. So yeah, not really that great. Yeah, let's play one more, because actually I want a rematch. Yeah, let's play one more. I'm sure the owners of the channel will forgive me for overrunning the assigned 2-hour mark. But yeah, like I definitely have a very easily identifiable issue with just not recognizing I'm running out of time. Yeah, Nizahi, as usual, is absolutely correct. This is the big risk with having me on. You then have to call for the pest control. Yeah, this second game is going a lot better than the first one. Yeah, this position definitely seems much nicer than the one I got in the first game. Even though, honestly, the position I had in the first game was also fine. I just, at some point, started misplaying it quite badly. Like, really, really badly. Alright, and now, having exacted my revenge, I will say thank you to all the people who tuned in and watched me ramble on and lose on time and generally struggle with this difficult but interesting board game. I don't know where my next stream on this platform will be, but there will be more, that's for sure. And as I mentioned in the first hour, Bucharest is resuming tomorrow. There's 4 more rounds left. The tournament is extremely open with 1 point separating the first place from the last. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be watching that tomorrow, and probably so should you. Once again, thanks everybody, and yeah, see you soon. Bye.